There's a ripple of quiet talk drifting out from a set in Istanbul, and it keeps circling back to the same two names, Barış Baktaş and his screen partner, Yağmur Yüksel. The whispers are not about a script change or a scheduling hiccup. They're about something softer, something no one says out loud on a call sheet, a feeling that refused to announce itself and yet reorganized the energy in the room, one glance at a time. Those who have been close enough to watch the rhythm of their days say the story didn't explode into existence, it simply gathered weight, month by careful month, inside Barış. He didn't rush headlong into anything. He let it swell quietly, drawing breath from long rehearsals and those lingering moments between takes when the clatter of the set falls away and you can hear what your own heart is doing. People who've been around them since the first table read insist the signs were never obvious at first. They were subtle, almost shy. When Yağmur stepped through the studio doors, he became a little more deliberate. His words slowed, the noise around him blurred, and his posture softened, like someone unconsciously bracing for a truth he wasn't ready to name. He never crossed the line of professionalism. If anything, he leaned further into it. He gave space. Exactly the kind of respectful distance that looks neutral to an outsider, but his attention never drifted. If a cable was in her path, he would quietly nudge it aside. If a prop wobbled, his hand was already there to steady it. He'd sit 2 seats away at a read-through and still sense when she needed water, when the air conditioning turned the room too cold, when she was laughing a little to diffuse a demanding scene. The delicate dance of it all built itself in fragments. They would run lines late into the evening, chasing the kind of emotional truth you can't fake on screen. There was an ease between them in those private corners of the set, away from cameras and supervision. The conversations wandered beyond the scene marks in dialogue. They drifted into stories about home, about the roads that brought them to this industry, about the strange mixture of hunger and patience it takes to hold a dream intact. It wasn't flirting. It wasn't even flirtation's cousin. It was a steady, hushed current that kept pulling him closer to something he couldn't file under friendship or routine. As the weeks turned into months, Barış began to recognize that the quiet he used to carry like armor no longer concealed anything. It amplified it. The stillness around Yağmur was no longer lack of words, it became a language all its own. He tried to manage it the way he handles complicated scenes. Breathe, focus, deliver the moment honestly, then step away. But real feelings aren't scenes. They can't be captured in a take and approved by a director, they spill out at the edges. Those who know him describe him as disciplined, even guarded. He protects the work. He protects the set. He protects the people he shares a frame with. So when he realized that his growing tenderness for his co-star had evolved beyond something he could tidy away at wrap, he did the one thing that felt responsible: he retreated, gently, to keep the atmosphere clean and the boundary intact. That retreat is what many noticed first. He didn't vanish, he just recalibrated. When she joined a conversation, he went quieter. When she arrived in the makeup trailer, he looked up, smiled, and then gave her the space to settle, keeping his own voice measured, careful not to feed any rumor mill. Yet he watched in small ways, the kind that rarely register unless you're paying attention. He would angle his chair to block a draft when she shivered. He would offer a coat and pretend it was just closer to him than to her. He would step away from a crowded corridor so she wouldn't have to squeeze through and bump a shoulder she later needed for a strenuous scene. From the outside, Yağmur's kindness blended seamlessly into the professional poise she always carries. She didn't press him when he grew quieter. She didn't chase him down for an explanation he wasn't ready to share. She sensed the shift, the way you notice the changing color of the light at day's end, and she respected it. That respect, paradoxically, made everything harder for him. Every time she chose gentleness over curiosity, every time she chose a soft smile over pointed questions, the tug inside him deepened. She made it easy to be near her and impossible to stop thinking about her. Then came the night everyone keeps referencing when they lower their voices and lean in a little closer. It was a late shoot, the kind that steals hours from sleep and demands patience from everyone. The scene wasn't complicated from a technical standpoint. There were no stunts. No elaborate blocking. Just a quiet piece of storytelling designed to reveal a private corner of two characters' hearts. The camera was pushing in. the lighting was soft and unforgiving. It required a closeness you can't fake with angles, the kind of emotional proximity that asks both actors to show what they don't say. According to a handful of crew members, you could tell from the way Barış set down his script that something was louder inside him than the director's voice. He wasn't flubbing lines. He wasn't missing marks. The tension around him had nothing to do with craft. It was the weight of everything unsaid, condensed into a few inches of scripted intimacy. As the camera rolled and the room fell into that ritual hush, he held the moment as written, but those nearby noticed the telltale signs. A shallower breath, a fraction of a pause before he met her eyes, a swallow that had nothing to do with the character's stakes and everything to do with his own. When the take ended and the set exhaled, the first assistant director asked for a brief reset. Barış stepped back, shook out his shoulders, nodded to the director, and readied for another pass. On the surface, it looked like any other late-night challenge, resolved by concentration and repetition. But those in the circle knew better. The scene wasn't difficult. The feelings were. Despite that inner storm, no one can fault his professionalism. He showed up prepared, listened closely, and carried his scenes with precision. He never turned personal emotion into on-set drama. He didn't burden colleagues with confessions. He didn't reroute the day's plans because his heart was too full. He just worked a little harder to appear effortless, a trick only the most disciplined performers can manage when they're balancing real life against an imagined one. And he kept that distance, the respectful kind, even when it cost him the relief of simple closeness. Yağmur, for her part, never laid a trap for a conversation he wasn't ready to have. She remained generous with her attention and careful with her warmth. When she sensed him taking a step back, she kept the ground steady and open, as if to say, "I see you, but I don't need to pull you any closer than you want to come." She checked on him in that unassuming way good colleagues do, a cup of tea left on a side table, a quick glance to make sure the night air wasn't biting too hard, a joke dropped into the quiet just to break a thread of tension before a close-up. She never pressured, never demanded clarity. And that, many believe, is precisely what deepened his struggle. The absence of pressure made room for honesty, and honesty left him nowhere to hide from how much he cared. In the days after the late-night shoot, the talk didn't die down. If anything, it grew more focused. Crew members compared notes the way people do when they're trying to understand something delicate without injuring it. A grip would mention a moment he noticed at the monitor. A makeup artist would quietly recall the tremor in a hand as a touch-up brush hovered. A camera operator would nod, remembering a breath caught a beat too long in the quiet before action. No one called it love. No one labeled it a crush. That would be too simple. They just acknowledged that whatever lived between them now, on and off camera, had become heavier than routine and bigger than coincidence. And yet, in the middle of all that care and curiosity, the set stayed intact. The work did not suffer. The scenes landed. The show kept its promise to the audience. That's the part that keeps earning those small, appreciative looks from the crew when his name comes up. He never let the mess of a human heart interfere with the machine of production. He bore the weight quietly and found ways to place it down long enough to focus when the red light came on. After each take, he would find a corner of the set, lean against a wall, let his heartbeat settle, and come back ready. What remains unresolved is the simplest question of all: will any of this ever be said out loud? Some think the very same tenderness that has protected their boundaries will keep the truth tucked away, at least for now. Others say it's only a matter of time before the logic of working closely together nudges them toward a conversation in a corridor at 2 a.m, the kind of conversation that starts with, "Are you okay?" and ends with the kind of silence you can't disguise as concentration. If it happens, it will happen carefully. It will happen with the same respect that has defined every decision so far. And if it doesn't, the feeling won't vanish just because no one named it. It will simply become part of what powers their best work, the thing both of them can access when a scene asks for real fragility. Meanwhile, the buzz around them keeps slipping into the wider world, not through scandal but through admiration. Fans who study their scenes frame by frame have begun to notice micro-expressions that only register when you already suspect something deeper, a softness at the edge of a smile, a pause that lives just on the safe side of a confession. Those who have been on sets long enough know what this means. It means the truth inside the moment is richer than the script alone, and it's being tended with a kind of care that preserves both the job and the people doing it. At the heart of it, this isn't a melodrama with tidy answers. It's not the story of a set derailed by reckless choices or a romance cooked up to sell a headline. It's the story of two rising stars who learned each other's rhythms so completely that the boundary between performance and reality blurred in the gentlest way. He pulled back to protect what they built. She moved with him instead of against him. Together, without meaning to, they created a private language everyone around them could feel but no one could translate. Barış still arrives early. He still warms up his voice, marks his script, and checks his beats. Yağmur still rolls onto set with that easy composure, knowing precisely where her presence belongs in a scene and where it doesn't. They still bring out the best in each other when the camera peers in and demands something honest. The crew still respects them, not because gossip is fun, but because it's rare to see two people carry something this tender without dropping any of the professional pieces that keep a show alive. If the weight is heavy, it is also purposeful. It asks them to be larger than impulse and quieter than rumor. No one can say whether a day will come when they decide the silence has done its job and the truth can stand on its own feet. For now, what exists is a pact no one wrote down: keep the work clean, keep the feelings safe, and let time decide what deserves to be said. Until then, the moment that crystallized the whole story, the late night, the camera inching closer, the air thick with the unscripted, will linger in the lore of the set. People will bring it up with a half smile and a shake of the head, the way you talk about a scene that landed too well because something real slipped through. So yes, there is a quiet battle unfolding, only it doesn't look like a fight. It looks like patience. It looks like a man teaching himself how to step back without disappearing. It looks like a woman meeting that retreat with grace so complete it becomes a shelter. It looks like two artists taking the most precarious route through a feeling, one that keeps their craft intact while refusing to turn their hearts into a spectacle. And that is why, when the day ends and the set empties and only the echoes remain, the murmurs continue. They say this is the behind-the-scenes story everyone keeps returning to, not because it's scandalous, but because it's honest. It adds a layer of meaning to their scenes you can't fake and a depth to their partnership you can't invent. Whether they ever put it into words is secondary now. The truth has already shaped the space between them, and everyone who shares that space can feel it. In a world that feeds on revelations, it is almost radical to let something tender stay unnamed. But if you stand near the monitors on a long night and watch the two of them find each other in a scene that asks for bruised vulnerability, you understand why the whispers don't stop. You understand why people lower their voices and tell the story again, hoping that saying it out loud will make sense of it. It doesn't. It just reminds you that some of the most compelling stories don't need headlines or declarations. They just need time. And that is exactly what this one has. Time to grow, time to be carried, time to change the way a set breathes when two people who care too much try to keep all of it, and each other, safe. If the future brings a conversation behind a closed door, it will likely be quiet and deliberate, the way this has been all along. If it doesn't, the work will still hold a trace of it, preserved in close-ups where emotions flicker too quickly to be planned. The cameras will keep rolling. The crew will keep showing up. And somewhere inside that hum of preparation, the careful distance and the watchful attention will continue to live side by side. That's the truth of it, the kind of truth that doesn't need to be shouted to be heard. It's already written on the set walls and in the patient way they look after one another without naming what it is they're protecting. What was once overlooked is now impossible to ignore. The quiet war inside a careful heart, the grace that kept it from breaking anything fragile, and the unexpected depth it brought to two careers rising in sync. It's the sort of behind-the-scenes story that becomes a legend not because anyone wanted it to, but because everyone felt it at once. And somewhere between the night shoot that tested his composure and the morning call time that asked for their best again, Barış Baktaş and Yağmur Yüksel found a way to carry it all. Unspoken, unforced, and undeniably real.